The vagus nerve is the primary communication pathway between the brain and the gut, and understanding this connection changes the way we look at digestion, metabolism, and even fat storage. This single nerve acts like a high-speed information highway linking the brainstem to the stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, and other major organs. It does not simply send instructions from the brain downward. In fact, most of the communication travels upward from the gut back to the brain. This means your digestive system is constantly reporting its condition, and your brain is constantly adjusting your physiology based on those reports. Inside your gut lies a vast ecosystem of microbes, immune cells, and hormone-producing cells. Every time you eat, this system begins processing nutrients, identifying potential threats, and releasing chemical messengers. These signals travel through the vagus nerve to inform the brain about what is happening. If inflammation is rising, the message is. If nutrients are abundant, the message is sent. If the gut lining is irritated or stressed, the message is sent. The brain then responds by adjusting appetite, metabolism, stress hormones, and immune activity. This two-way communication is often called the gut-brain axis. It is not theoretical, it is anatomical and measurable. The vagus nerve forms the structural backbone of this axis. When the communication is clear and balanced, digestion works efficiently. Stomach acid is released at the right time. Digestive enzymes are secreted properly. Food moves smoothly through the intestines. Nutrients are absorbed effectively. Waste is eliminated without discomfort. In this state, the body feels calm and energy levels remain stable. However, when this communication pathway becomes impaired, due to chronic stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, or inflammation, the signals become distorted. The brain may misinterpret hunger and fullness cues. It may increase stress hormones like cortisol. It may slow digestion or create spasms in the gut. Over time, this miscommunication can contribute to bloating, acid reflux, constipation, irritable bowel patterns, and even weight gain. Why does this affect fat storage? Because metabolism is not controlled only by calories. It is regulated by hormones and nervous system signals. The vagus nerve influences insulin sensitivity, glucose regulation, and the balance between fat storage and fat burning. If gut inflammation is high, signals through the vagus nerve can promote a stress response. The body, sensing threat, shifts into conservation mode. In conservation mode, it stores energy as fat, particularly around the abdomen. This is not a failure of willpower. It is a protective biological response driven by nervous system signaling. On the other hand, when vagal tone, the strength and responsiveness of the vagus nerve is healthy, the body shifts into parasympathetic dominance. This is the rest and digest state. In this state, digestion becomes efficient, inflammation decreases, and blood sugar stabilizes. Hunger hormones such as ghrelin and satiety hormones such as leptin function more accurately. You feel satisfied after meals rather than craving constant snack. Energy is used more effectively rather than stored unnecessarily. Research also shows that the vagus nerve plays a role in controlling inflammatory pathways. When activated properly, it can signal the immune system to reduce excessive inflammation. Since chronic low-grade inflammation is strongly linked to metabolic disorders and weight gain, maintaining strong vagal communication helps regulate this process at its root. It becomes clear that gut healing and fat reduction are not separate goals. They are interconnected outcomes of proper neuroregulation. Breathing patterns, emotional state, and eating habits all influence this nerve. Rapid, shallow breathing and constant stress suppress its activity. Slow diaphragmatic breathing, calm eating, adequate sleep, and balanced nutrition enhance its signaling capacity. In other words, daily lifestyle choices either strengthen or weaken this communication highway. When you understand that the vagus nerve is the primary bridge between your brain and your digestive system, you begin to see the body as an integrated network rather than isolated organs. The gut does not work alone. The brain does not act independently. They are in continuous dialogue. If that dialogue is clear and balanced, health follows naturally. If it is disrupted, symptoms appear. For healing the gut and improving metabolism is not only about what you eat, it is about restoring communication. It is about ensuring that the messages traveling along this neural pathway are strong, accurate, and balanced. When that happens, digestion improves, inflammation decreases, and the body can finally shift from survival mode into efficient, sustainable function. About 80% of the signals traveling through the vagus nerve move from the gut to the brain, not from the brain to the gut. This single fact overturns the common belief that the brain is always the dominant controller and the gut is merely a passive organ waiting for instruction. In reality, the digestive system is constantly sending detailed updates to the brain, shaping mood, appetite, metabolism, immune response, and even decision-making patterns. The gut is not silent. It is reporting, adjusting, and influencing the central nervous system every moment. Inside the lining of the digestive tract are millions of sensory receptors. These receptors detect mechanical stretch when food enters the stomach, chemical composition when nutrients break down, and inflammatory markers when irritation or imbalance. They also detect microbial activity from the trillions of bacteria living in the intestines. When these receptors sense changes, they transmit electrical and chemical signals through the vagus nerve directly to the brainstem. From there, the information is distributed to higher brain centers that regulate hormones, stress responses, and energy balance. This means that your cravings, your hunger levels, and even your emotional state can be shaped by the messages coming from your gut. If your gut microbiome is balanced and your digestion is efficient, the signals sent upward tend to promote stability. The brain interprets these signals as safety. In response, it regulates appetite appropriately, stabilizes blood sugar, and maintains calm neurological function. You feel clear-headed and satisfied after meals. But if the gut environment is inflamed or imbalanced, the signals change. Inflammation produces chemical messengers known as cytokines. These molecules can activate vagal pathways that inform the brain something is wrong. The brain responds by adjusting stress hormones and immune activity. Cortisol levels may rise. Appetite patterns may shift. You may crave quick energy sources like sugar because the brain interprets inflammation as a threat that requires immediate fuel. Over time, this can lead to persistent cravings, emotional eating, and increased fat storage. The upward flow of communication also explains why digestive problems often accompany anxiety or low mood. Since most vagal fibers are afferent, meaning they carry information upward, the condition of the gut significantly shapes mental states. If digestion is sluggish or the microbiome is disturbed, signals traveling to the brain can influence neurotransmitter balance. Serotonin, often called the feel-good neurotransmitter, is largely produced in the gut. When gut signaling is disrupted, serotonin regulation may also be affected, altering mood and motivation. From a metabolic standpoint, this upward communication is critical. The gut informs the brain about nutrient availability. When proteins and healthy fats are digested, specific receptors signal satiety through the vagus. The brain then reduces hunger hormones and increases feelings of fullness. If this signaling pathway is weakened, the brain may not properly register that you have eaten enough. This can result in overeating, even caloric intake is already sufficient. The same principle applies to blood sugar regulation. When carbohydrates are broken down, the gut communicates glucose levels to the brain. The brain then coordinates insulin release and energy usage. If inflammatory signals interfere with this communication, insulin sensitivity can decline. Cells may become less responsive to insulin, encouraging fat storage rather than energy expenditure. What appears to be a simple dietary issue may actually be a communication breakdown along the vagal pathway. This upward dominance of signaling also highlights the importance of gut integrity. The intestinal lining acts as a selective barrier, allowing nutrients to pass while blocking toxins. If this barrier becomes compromised, inflammatory molecules can enter circulation and stimulate vagal afferent fibers. The brain receives constant or distress messages, maintaining a low-level stress response. Chronic stress chemistry promotes abdominal fat accumulation and metabolic inefficiency. Lifestyle factors directly influence this communication channel. Chronic psychological stress alters gut motility and microbial composition, which then modifies the signal sent upward. Poor sleep disrupts hormone regulation in the gut, affecting satiety signals. Highly processed foods can irritate the gut lining and change microbial balance, sending inflammatory messages to the brain. Conversely, fiber-rich whole foods, mindful eating patterns support a healthier gut environment, improving the quality of signals transmitted. Understanding that most vagus nerve communication travels from the gut to the brain shifts responsibility. It means gut health is not secondary, it is foundational. Your brain's interpretation of hunger, safety, and energy balance depends largely on the data it receives from your digestive system. If that data is clean and balanced, the brain responds with precision. If that data is chaotic or inflammatory, the brain reacts defensively. Healing, therefore, requires strengthening the accuracy and clarity of this upward communication. When the gut environment is restored, inflammatory noise decreases, satiety signals become reliable, mood stabilizes, metabolism functions more efficiently, fat storage mechanisms calm down because the brain no longer perceives a constant internal. The body is not malfunctioning. It is responding to information. And since 80% of that information flows from the gut to the brain, improving gut health becomes one of the most powerful strategies for regulating appetite, mood, and body composition. Communication defines function. When the message improves, the outcome improves. Strong vagal tone is a reflection of how effectively the vagus nerve responds to the body's needs. It represents flexibility, adaptability, and precision in communication between the brain and the digestive system. When vagal tone is strong, digestion becomes efficient, coordinated, and resilient. When it is weak, digestion becomes sluggish, irregular, and prone to dysfunction. Understanding this difference reveals why improving vagal tone can transform gut health at its foundation. Digestion is not a mechanical process alone. It is neurologically driven. Before food even enters the stomach, the nervous system prepares the body to receive it. The sight, smell, and thought of food can trigger vagal activation. This early phase stimulates saliva production, stomach acid release, and enzyme secretion. Strong vagal tone ensures this preparation phase is robust. When the system anticipates food correctly, digestion begins smoothly rather than abruptly. Once food reaches the stomach, vagal signals coordinate acid secretion. Acid is essential for breaking down proteins, activating digestive enzymes, and protecting against harmful microbes. Many digestive complaints, such as bloating or reflux, are linked not only to excess acid but often to insufficient or poorly timed acid release. Strong vagal tone helps regulate acid production accurately, neither excessive nor deficient, allowing proteins to be properly digested and nutrients to be absorbed downstream. As digestion continues into the small intestine, pancreatic enzyme and bile are released. These substances break down fats, carbohydrates, and proteins into absorbable units. The vagus nerve plays a critical role in signaling their release. If vagal tone is strong, enzyme secretion is synchronized with the arrival of food. This prevents undigested particles from lingering in the gut, where they could ferment and cause gas or discomfort. Proper breakdown of fats also ensures that fat-soluble vitamins are absorbed efficiently, supporting metabolic health. Gut motility, the rhythmic contraction of intestinal muscles, is another function regulated by vagal signaling. Strong vagal tone promotes coordinated peristalsis, the wave-like motion that moves food through the digestive tract. When this rhythm is balanced, nutrients have adequate time to be absorbed, while waste is eliminated regularly. Weak vagal tone may slow this process, leading to constipation and toxin buildup, or disrupt coordination, contributing to cramping and irregular bowel patterns. Nutrient absorption depends not only on digestion but also on the integrity of the intestinal lining. The vagus nerve influences blood flow to digestive organs, ensuring that the intestinal walls receive sufficient oxygen and nutrients. Strong circulation supports healthy cellular turnover and maintains tight junctions within the gut lining. When these junctions remain intact, they prevent harmful substances from leaking into the bloodstream. This protects against chronic inflammation, which is often associated with metabolic disturbances and weight gain. The connection between vagal tone and inflammation is particularly important. The vagus nerve activates an anti-inflammatory reflex that helps regulate immune responses in the gut. When vagal tone is strong, inflammatory signaling is kept under control. The immune system responds appropriately to threats without overreacting. This balanced immune activity reduces irritation of the gut lining and supports a stable microbial environment. A stable microbiome further enhances digestion and nutrient synthesis, creating a positive feedback loop. Strong vagal tone also influences the balance of hunger and satiety hormone. During digestion, stretch receptors and nutrient sensors in the stomach and intestine send signals through the vagus nerve to the brain. These signals inform the brain that nourishment is being processed. The brain then reduces hunger hormones and increases satiety signals. When vagal tone is weak, this communication may be delayed or incomplete, leading to overeating or persistent hunger despite adequate intake. Stress is one of the greatest disruptors of vagal tone. Chronic activation of the sympathetic or fight or flight system suppresses parasympathetic activity, which includes vagal function. In a stress state, blood flow is redirected away from the digestive tract toward muscles and the heart. Digestive secretions decrease, motility becomes irregular, and nutrient absorption declines. Strengthening vagal tone helps restore parasympathetic dominance, shifting the body back into a state where digestion can occur efficiently. Lifestyle habits directly influence vagal tone. Slow diaphragmatic breathing stimulates vagal pathways by activating receptors in the diaphragm. Eating in a calm environment enhances parasympathetic activation. Adequate sleep supports nerve recovery and hormonal balance. Even gentle physical activity improves circulation and nervous system flexibility. Over time, these practices condition the vagus nerve to respond more effectively, strengthening its tone. When vagal tone improves, the digestive system becomes more than functional. It becomes optimized. Food is broken down thoroughly. Nutrients are absorbed efficiently. Inflammation is regulated. Elimination is regular. The body no longer operates in defensive mode, but in a state of coordinated balance. This efficiency reduces metabolic strain, allowing energy to be used productively rather than stored unnecessarily as. Strong vagal tone is not about forcing digestion. It is about restoring communication and rhythm. It represents harmony between the brain and the gut. When that harmony exists, digestion becomes smooth, nutrient absorption becomes reliable, and the entire metabolic system operates with greater intelligence and stability. The vagus nerve activates the parasympathetic nervous system, often referred to as the arrest and digestive state. This is not simply a calming phrase. It represents a precise biological condition in which the body shifts from survival mode into repair mode. Every system behaves differently depending on which branch of the nervous system is dominant. When the sympathetic system, commonly known as a fight or flight, is active, the body prepares for action. Heart rate increases, breathing becomes rapid, blood flow shifts to muscles, and digestion slows. This response is useful in short bursts during real danger. However, when it becomes chronic, it disrupts nearly every aspect of gut function and metabolism. The parasympathetic system, driven largely by the vagus nerve, does the opposite. It lowers heart rate, deepens breathing, increases digestive secretions, and promotes nutrient absorption. In this state, the body interprets the environment as safe. Safety allows energy to be directed toward growth, healing, and efficient digestion rather than emergency responses. Without this shift into parasympathetic dominance, proper digestion cannot follow. When you begin eating in a relaxed state, the vagus nerve stimulates saliva production. Saliva contains enzymes that initiate carbohydrate digestion and prepare food for smoother processing in the stomach. As food travels downward, vagal activation signals the stomach to release hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. This ensures proteins are broken down into amino acids and that harmful microbes are neutralized. If parasympathetic activation is weak, stomach acid secretion may be insufficient or poorly timed, leading to bloating, heaviness, and incomplete digestion. Beyond the stomach, the vagus nerve coordinates pancreatic enzyme release and bile secretion from the liver and gallbladder. These substances are essential for breaking down fats and absorbing fat-soluble vitamins. In a stressed state, this coordination weakens. Fats may not be digested properly, leading to discomfort and poor nutrient uptake. Over time, inefficient digestion contributes to fatigue and metabolic imbalance because the body is not extracting energy efficiently from food. The arrest and digested state also regulates gut movement. Parasympathetic activation promotes rhythmic contractions that move food smoothly through the intestines. In contrast, chronic sympathetic dominance can slow movement, causing constipation or create irregular spasms that lead to cramp. When digestion becomes irregular, inflammation may increase and microbial balance may shift unfavorably. This imbalance can further disrupt metabolic signaling. The relationship between the parasympathetic system and fat metabolism is equally significant. When the body remains in fight or flight mode, cortisol levels rise. Elevated cortisol encourages fat storage, particularly around the abdomen. This is a protective adaptation. In perceived danger, the body stores energy for survival. However, when stress is constant due to work pressure, poor sleep, or emotional strain, the body never fully exits this storage mode. Even with calorie control, fat loss becomes difficult because the nervous system continues to signal threat. Activating the vagus nerve reverses this pattern. In parasympathetic dominance, cortisol levels decline. Insulin sensitivity improves. Blood sugar stabilizes. The body shifts from conserving energy to utilizing it more efficiently. Hunger signals become more accurate because the brain receives clear feedback from the digestive tract. Cravings driven by stress hormones begin to decrease. Fat burning becomes a regulated process rather than a forced one. Inflammation is also influenced by this shift. The parasympathetic system activates an anti-inflammatory pathway, sometimes described as a reflex mechanism. When functioning properly, this pathway prevents excessive immune reactions in the gut. Reduced inflammation improves nutrient absorption and protects the integrity of the intestinal lining. As inflammation declines, metabolic efficiency improves because the body no longer expends excessive energy managing immune stress. Breathing patterns provide a practical example of how vagal activation works. Slow diaphragmatic breathing stimulates vagal pathways through mechanical movement of the diaphragm. This directly signals the brain to increase parasympathetic tone. Heart rate slows, digestive activity increases, and a sense of calm emerges. Eating while practicing slow breathing can significantly improve digestive efficiency compared to eating in a rushed or anxious state. Sleep also strengthens parasympathetic activity. During deep sleep, the body repairs tissues, regulates hormones, and balances immune responses. Inadequate sleep weakens vagal tone and increases sympathetic dominance the following day. This creates a cycle of poor digestion and heightened stress chemistry. Restoring sleep quality is therefore not optional for gut healing. It is foundational. The parasympathetic state is not laziness. It is intelligent regulation. It is a condition under which enzymes are released accurately, nutrients are absorbed efficiently, and metabolic hormones remain balanced. Without this state, digestion becomes incomplete, inflammation increases, and fat storage becomes more likely. Understanding the vagus nerve governs this arrest and digestive system reframes health strategy. It is not only about what is eaten, but also about the nervous system's state in which it is eaten. When parasympathetic activation becomes consistent, the body moves from chronic defense into coordinated function. In that state, digestion improves naturally, inflammation decreases steadily, and metabolic balance begins to restore itself from within. Weak vagal tone creates a cascade of digestive and metabolic disturbances that often go unnoticed at first but gradually develop into persistence. When the vagus nerve does not respond efficiently, communication between the brain and the digestive organs becomes inconsistent. This disruption affects stomach acid production, enzyme release, gut motility, inflammation control, and hormonal balance. The result is not a single symptom but a pattern. Bloating, discomfort after meals, irregular bowel movements, chronic low-grade inflammation, and stubborn fat accumulation, especially around the abdomen. Digestion begins in the brain before food even reaches the stomach. If vagal tone is weak, this preparatory phase is impaired. Saliva production may be reduced and stomach acid secretion may be delayed or insufficient. Without adequate acid, proteins are not properly broken down and harmful microbes are not effectively neutralized. Wanders in the stomach longer than it should, fermenting and producing gas. This leads to bloating, heaviness, and sometimes reflux. Many people assume excess acid is the issue, but often it is poorly regulated acid caused by weak vagal signaling. As food moves into the intestines, enzyme coordination becomes critical. The pancreas must release digestive enzymes at the right time, and bile must be secreted to emulsify fats. Weak vagal tone disrupts this coordination. Incomplete digestion leaves larger food particles in the gut, which can irritate the intestinal lining. Over time, this irritation stimulates immune responses and increases inflammatory signaling. Chronic inflammation in the gut does not remain isolated. It spreads systemically through circulating inflammatory mediators. Inflammation has direct metabolic consequences. When inflammatory signals rise, the body activates stress pathways. Cortisol levels increase and insulin sensitivity may decline. Elevated cortisol encourages fat storage as a protective measure, particularly visceral fat around the organs. This type of fat is metabolically active and further contributes to inflammation, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. The body, sensing internal stress, shifts into energy conservation mode. Even moderate caloric intake can be directed towards storage rather than energy expenditure. Weak vagal tone also affects gut motility. The rhythmic contractions that move food through the intestines become irregular. Some individuals experience slowed movement, leading to constipation and toxin buildup. Others may experience erratic contractions, causing cramping or alternating bowel patterns. Irregular motility alters the balance of gut bacteria. When beneficial bacteria decrease and opportunistic species overgrow, fermentation increases, producing more gas and inflammatory byproducts. This microbial imbalance sends distress signals back to the brain, reinforcing stress responses. Hormonal regulation is another critical factor. The vagus nerve helps transmit signals related to hunger and satiety. Stretch receptors in the stomach and nutrient sensors in the intestines rely on vagal pathways to inform the brain when enough food has been consumed. With weak vagal tone, these signals may not reach the brain effectively. As a result, feelings of fullness may be delayed or blunted. Individuals may continue eating beyond their physiological needs, not due to lack of discipline, but due to impaired signaling. Chronic inflammation interferes with how cells respond to these hormones. Leptin, which signals satiety, becomes less effective, leading to persistent hunger. Insulin, responsible for moving glucose into cells for energy, may become less efficient, encouraging glucose to be stored as fat. Over time, this hormonal resistance makes weight management increasingly difficult. Stress plays a central role in weakening vagal tone. Persistent psychological stress maintains sympathetic dominance, suppressing parasympathetic activity. Blood flow shifts away from the digestive organs toward muscles and the heart. Digestive secretions decrease and immune regulation becomes less balanced. The body remains in a state of perceived threat, even in the absence of real danger. This chronic stress chemistry promotes abdominal fat storage because the body prioritizes survival over efficiency. Sleep deprivation compounds the problem. Poor sleep reduces vagal recovery and elevates cortisol levels the following day. Appetite-regulating hormones become imbalanced, increasing cravings for high-calorie, quick-energy foods. These foods may further irritate the gut lining, intensifying inflammation and perpetuating weak vagal signaling. Over time, the combination of impaired digestion, microbial imbalance, chronic inflammation, and hormonal disruption forms a cycle that sustains weight gain and digestive discomfort. What appears to be isolated symptoms, bloating after meals, difficulty losing weight, irregular digestion, may all trace back to weakened vagal tone. Strengthening vagal tone interrupts this cycle. Improved parasympathetic activation restores coordinated digestion, reduces inflammatory signaling, stabilizes hormones, and enhances metabolic flexibility. When communication between the brain and gut becomes clear again, the body no longer interprets internal imbalance as a threat, Cortisol levels stabilize, insulin sensitivity improves, and fat storage mechanisms calm down. Weak vagal tone does not merely cause discomfort, it alters the body's metabolic strategy. By understanding this connection, it becomes evident that healing requires restoring neural balance. When vagal signaling strengthens, digestion improves, inflammation decreases, and the body shifts from defensive storage toward efficient energy.